What? Welcome to another edition of the Freedom 413 podcast. I have an interesting article for you. This one is from the New York Post. Boston mayor's anti-white Xmas party. Okay, so she wants to have a non-white electeds of color only Christmas party. All right. Could some of the Boston City councilors be so utterly obvious and tone deaf as to support the idea of hosting a Christmas party exclusively for the electeds of color? Ho, ho, no to whites. Uh, Obviously, yes. Even Mayor Michelle Wu appears unaware of the optics of holding a race restricted party in a public building. I could not imagine a mayor of an American city hosting a Christmas party exclusively for white elected officials. Yes, because if that were the case, people would be crying foul. It'd be discrimination, right? It'll be racist if it were an all white Christmas party. So let's host an all elected of color Christmas party. Um, that's inclusive. That's acceptable, right? Uh, but this does seem entirely blatantly racist to me, he says. Uh, and then it goes on to say, I think the staffer who accidentally sent the email to everyone apologized only because it wasn't intended for the offices of white city councilors. That to me was a lamentable apology, and it is. You're just trying to save face. That's what that was. At least the city councilor, Tanya Fernandez Anderson, Fernandez with an S, was honest in her seemingly racist public reaction. She thought there was nothing wrong with a segregated Christmas party hosted by the mayor, and the mayor agreed with her. Like I said earlier, had it been an all white Christmas party, the people on the left, especially the people of color, would have screamed segregation, racist. They would have screamed all that stuff. They would have cried their liberal tears out until let's continue. Are they all that out of the loop when it comes to initiating and supporting the idea that it's acceptable to segregate city councilors by race for a Christmas party? So that was Sal Giaratini. Forgive me if I mispronounced that. Uh, I lived in Alabama during the tenure of its segregationist governor, George Wallace. For those of you who know from him back in the day, you know about that. Wu is as much racist as Wallace. I believe, which I believe earns her the title of Boston's separate but equal mayor. I'd have to agree. Wallace's racist policies were a setback for Alabama. Likewise, Wu's misguided support of segregation, as shown through her Christmas party, could potentially set back Boston, as if it wasn't set back enough, and the entire state of Massachusetts. Now, I've always wanted to visit Boston. I'll be honest about that. I've always wanted to visit Boston, and primarily for the Boston Marathon. That's pretty much the only reason. The other reason being, uh, I'd want to visit Fenway Park at some point in my life before I die. That being said, I'm not so sure if I'd even want to. But things can change within months. You never really know. I'm still open to a visit down the line, but I'm just not crazy about the mayor right now. Wallace and the policies of segregation are relics of a bygone past. Wu, however, may find herself consigned along them thanks to her racist policies and behavior. That was James Patterson of Washington, D.C. Uh, I'd have to agree with everything said there. I mean, that seems pretty racist to me. But see, if it were an all white party, yeah, it'd be all over the headlines, all over the national news. CNN would be talking about it. Then you'd hear uh, our president Joe Biden's 2 cents. Uh, it'll be all over. I'm surprised that I really haven't heard much about this. Then again, I'm not surprised. Okay. The unhappy mayor of Boston, Michelle Wu, does not want white city council's members to attend the city hall holiday party. This situation echoes the distressing times of the old segregated South. Fast forward to the present, and segregation is happening at the highest level in the liberal, democratic northern city of Boston. Then again, why would anyone be surprised by this? This should be a holiday season where Wu celebrates joyfulness and togetherness instead of bitterness, rejection, and segregation. Kevin O'Leary, Kew Gardens. And I agree with everything said there. Let's continue. Can Boston's Mayor Michelle White's Go Home Wu be truly be that clueless? She expresses regret that her office made an honest mistake and accidentally sending out invitations to white city councilors for a holiday party intended solely for the electeds of color. However, she doesn't seem to have an issue with promoting and hosting a racially segregated social event in the first place. With leadership like this, who needs enemies? Charles Winocour, forgive me if I mispronounced that, Fall River, Massachusetts. Let's continue. After reading Thursday's article, I tried to imagine what would happen if Oklahoma City Mayor David Holt or another white mayor had also hosted a party for elected officials, but only invited whites. They would tear that city up. I could envision the pitchforks, torches, and screeching over bullhorns for Boston's Asian mayor to try and defend herself by saying that it's okay, as white people were not supposed to know. It's despicable. In the United States today, it seems that discrimination against whites is not only allowed but encouraged. Chris Plate, Waterloo. Let's say, for argument's sake, we decided to have an anti Asian party. She would not be okay with that. Or if we decided to have an anti black party in the city of Chicago, which has a black mayor, the mayor, Brandon Johnson, would not be okay with that, would he? But it would be okay, and I'm not talking about Brandon Johnson here. It would be okay for Michelle Wu to have an anti white party, excluding white people. If black people were to be excluded from this and she had an all anti black party, they would have thrown a fit in Boston. There would have been riots all over the place. Where's the outrage? Okay. And then there's more. Wu apologized for trying to host an electeds of color only party, but only for the invitation accidentally getting sent to the white electeds. One would reasonably assume she would have apologized for her discriminatory actions instead. She was trying to save face. Everybody knows that. If Boston's mayor was a white male who organized a whites only party, he would have been called a racist and correctly pressured to resign. All that Wu has demonstrated with her actions is that racism is now available in different races. Ellie Galliano, Asbury Park. All of these entries here are on point. They all make sense. Uh, my take on this is I agree with what everyone here said. And it's blatant racism. It's blatant racism. It doesn't work just one way. It doesn't work just against people of color. If you exclude a certain race of people for your own benefit, that makes you a racist. If you have an issue with any race in particular, you are a racist. If you are a racially biased person, you are a racist. I'm going to say it louder for the ones in the back listening and shaking their heads. If you are racially biased, you are a racist. Any questions? Till next time, God bless.